I couldn't help but seeing the headlines. So apparently Karen Read sues everybody.
To bring claims, affirmative claims against Brian Albert, Nicole Albert,
oh boy,
Matthew McCabe, Jennifer McCabe, and Brian Higgins.
But that's not all of what's happening today. Today is Tuesday, September 23rd. On Monday, Karen Read, her attorneys, and the civil case were in court. We have covered the initial complaint in the civil case, but it was a minute ago. Remember, this was initially filed in August of 2024 before the second trial went to trial. So after the first trial, before the second trial, and then it got stayed in the middle. These are all of the parties. Paul O'Keefe as personal representative for the estate of John O'Keefe, and then Paul O'Keefe in his own individual capacity. So those are two separate plaintiffs representing the estate of John O'Keefe and himself. And then you have John O'Keefe II, which is John O'Keefe's father, Margaret O'Keefe, the mother, and Margaret O'Keefe as grandparent and guardian of Kaye. Then that is against not just Karen Read, but against C.F. McCarthy's, Waterfall, and Karen Read. So we have numerous plaintiffs, we have numerous defendants, and not all counts go to everybody. Count one is the estate of John O'Keefe versus C.F. McCarthy's. Count two is the estate of John O'Keefe versus the Waterfall. Count three is the estate of John O'Keefe versus Karen Read. So you see how you end up with so many counts is because you end up with one plaintiff versus each of the defendants individually. And in Karen Read's motion to dismiss, she has gone after not the wrongful death cause of action, but others, and the bars have joined with her. So we will hear from the lawyers from C.F. McCarthy's and the Waterfall at this hearing today, I suspect. And then they said Rule 12 hearing, which should be the motion hearings. So I expect they'll at least get into the motion to dismiss. I'm not sure that they will get into a ruling on the motion to dismiss. I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't be anticipating it.
As we're anticipating the status of this case, it's important to inform the court that from Ms. Read's perspective, we have affirmative claims that we intend to bring on her behalf.
Defenses or
claims? Those claims stem from the same facts that I'd issue in this case. Those claims, Your Honor, are against parties that are not in the litigation at this point.
Oh, this is why everybody's saying that Karen's going to sue everybody. They don't mean affirmative defenses. They mean affirmative claims, like other causes of action. That means other parties that aren't involved. That means suing more people.
Including the Massachusetts State Police.
How are you going to sue the Massachusetts State Police inside of a wrongful death action? I mean, I think you should sue them. I don't know if you're going to be able to sue them in here. So he's telling the court, we have more claims we want to bring in this suit. So it's like the O'Keefes versus Karen Read in the bars, and then Karen Read versus the world.
Including the Massachusetts State Police, Lieutenant Brian Tully in his personal capacity.
Oh boy.
Sergeant Yuri Bukhenik in his personal capacity. Michael Proctor.
Of course.
Those claims would be in the nature of violations of Karen Read's civil rights and conspiracy. The claims against the Massachusetts State Police would be negligent training, supervision, and retention of Massachusetts State Police troopers.
I get it.
We also intend...
There's more? I get it. I don't know if the court's going to allow it in this lawsuit. It might be that this case gets filed separately and it gets put together, but this is difficult to bring the civil rights into a wrongful death case. But he's saying that there's more. So he's saying we intend to sue in our affirmative claims Massachusetts State Police, Tully, Bukhenik, and Proctor in their personal capacities for conspiracy and violations of civil rights, which is like your 1983 claim.
Your Honor, to bring claims, affirmative claims against Brian Albert, Nicole Albert,
oh boy,
Matthew McCabe, Jennifer McCabe and Brian Higgins.
What,
who were the
everybody?
occupants at 34 Fairview Road in Canton on the night in question.
So all
Those claims will be
all of the adults that were in the house, all of them, everybody that was at the party. We're suing everybody.
Those claims will be in the nature of civil conspiracy, violation of Karen Reid's civil rights, and then a claim against the town of Canton through its police department for negligent failure to secure the garage and the sally port.
That's fair.
Asking the court's permission to bring those claims in this case because they do arise out of the same nucleus of operative facts.
January 29th, 2022, Karen drives drunk. She reverses her SUV. She knocks JJ down. She leaves him to die in the cold. And Reid knows that she strikes the plaintiff. Rather than seeking to help or calling.
I mean, you're going to have a real hard time proving that. The drove drunk, I don't think you're going to have a hard time proving. But after that, you're going to have a real hard time proving it. I am trying not to yell because the court is required to take all of the allegations as true. It is much easier in a civil case that we don't know. It is intellectually substantially more different to say, the court has to take all of this as true when we have sat through 2 trials. The court has to accept what counsel is saying of the facts as true. It is very frustrating, but we are at the motion to dismiss stage. The legal standard is if the things written in the lawsuit are true, then is there a cause of action? That's it. Did you say the things that make this a cause of action? That's what the motion to dismiss is. More difficult, given the fact pattern of this case.
Reverses her SUV. She knocks JJ down. She leaves him to die in the cold. And Reid knows that she strikes the plaintiff. Rather than seeking to help or calling 911, she returns to JJ's home. There, JJ's 14-year-old niece, Kaye, a plaintiff in this case, is home alone, asleep. That's when Karen starts plotting. Now, it is significant for the facts for you to understand the context here. Karen Reid knows Kaye well. She's been in her life for almost up to 2 years. She has served as a part-time maternal figure in her life. She knows that Kaye is a vulnerable child, having lost 2 parents tragically, and 1 to 2 hours before JJ's body is ever found, before anybody knows his whereabouts, Karen Reid decides to wake up Kaye in a panic.
That timing's right.
She tells Kaye something happened to JJ. He's dead. He's been hit by a plow. Did I hit him? All to a 14-year-old child woken up from sleep who's already lost 2 parents. After provoking this chaos in the middle of the night, Miss Reid leaves Kaye alone, vulnerable, shocked, and afraid. It's now 1 to 2 hours later. It's at or around 6 a.m. in the morning. JJ's injured body is now found. Right where Karen left him, buried in the snow, 911 is called. Now is when JJ's family learns of JJ's injury. JJ's injuries at this point enter into the O'Keefe's consciousness. At or around 6 a.m., they rush to the hospital. It's 7:50 a.m. That's when the hospital pronounces JJ dead. And within minutes of being pronounced dead, that's when the O'Keefe family
that's not the timing that matters.
In the injured state. that he was in as a result of the wrongful conduct.
A huge thank you to today's sponsor, Incogni. You might be one of the more than 4.4 million Americans who just had all of your information accessed through TransUnion credit reporting. The TransUnion attack was discovered in September. They say it had only been going on for about 2 days. 2 days doesn't matter when it's your address, your name, and your social security number. Incogni works with you to get your information off of the internet quickly. It targets the data brokers that look to sell your information, and they will even do custom removals if you need more help getting your information off the internet. What I appreciate the most is the peace of mind that comes knowing that Incogni is constantly working in the background. So every time there's a new one of these breaches, there's nothing more I need to do except make sure that I'm saying, yep, take that information off the internet. If you are ready to take back control of your personal data with Incogni, now is the time, because if you use code Emily and our link below, you get 60% off an annual plan. Plus, Incogni is available risk-free for 30 days, so you can try it out for yourself and get a full refund if you're not entirely happy. Plus, you can add up to 3 emails, home addresses, and phone numbers to cover more exposed data. Plus, they do offer family plans, which is what I've done. They can't use your information against you. They can't find it. So get your 60% off, and let's get back to today's episode.
You also mentioned much about conspiracy theories, much about going out in the public and creating a narrative, which is precisely the reason why we're going to brief the issue about why those other parties need to be in this case. As I'd said, it is more than just a wrongful death action, Your Honor.
And there it is. The plaintiff's lawyer for the O'Keefes talked about a whole lot of stuff that went well beyond the O'Keefes showing up at the hospital and seeing John O'Keefe deceased, and John O'Keefe's niece and the distress she suffered when being woken up, and the conversations that happened there, and then Karen Reed calling Jen, McCabe, and then the rest of it. And now Karen's attorney is saying, exactly. See? That's why we need everybody. If they're going to go to trial and argue all of this, we need all of these other parties. Because what they just said. And I'm not surprised that they are taking the opportunity to say, exactly, Your Honor, good argument.
Honor, I respect the opportunity to brief that.
He paused.
We rely on our papers and defer to the court on the motion to dismiss.
The most important thing, it would seem to me, to any party to this case, is to resolve the uncertainty, right? Uncertainty is what you don't get when you go through the litigation process. You go through and you hope for the best. Lawyers work really hard for their clients, and we expect them to do that. Ultimately, the court system can make sure that the trial is done, and it's done in a way that's fairest that we can make it, and ultimately a decision is made. Civil cases, though, are very unlike criminal cases, and that's usually not the end. Ask any of the lawyers here, clients can ask your lawyers about post-disposition or post-verdict process. It can be really long and arduous.
Years.
I've had the pleasure of having trials that are 16, 18, 20 years old, and they're still going.
Your
clients don't have to do that.
It doesn't end.
Clients can try to put some efforts, at least as much effort in the litigation process as trying to resolve it. Why do I say that? Because resolving cases resolves uncertainty, which is perhaps the most important thing any client can get in a case. I say that because you'll have that opportunity through all the process. You've heard me outline it. Your discovery isn't even closing until the discovery is going to close next December, but it's really 2027 that you're looking for a trial in this case realistically. Again, we could do it in 2026 in the spring if you want to. And I'm going to ask the parties to work collaboratively to try to come up with a trial date that is workable. I understand that's a wrench has been thrown into the works because of this other process. We'll probably have to deal with that in the short term.
100% you're going to have to deal with that.
I'll pledge to try to get you what you can as quickly as I can.
Your Honor, please do not pledge us anything.
I'll pledge to try to get you what you can as quickly as I can. I tend to get decisions out pretty quickly. I tend to try to move things to get parties what they want, which is ultimately their day in court. I'm just telling you at the outset that I think that it's worthy of exploring possible resolutions on your own. You can do it through this court. We have a mediation process that you can avail yourselves of, judicial settlement conferences. You can go through private neutrals. because there are now 8 parties involved in this case, 2 of which are corporate defendants, 1 of which is Ms. Reed. And so that's going to give you a lot of opportunity for dialogue. My sense is I'm probably wasting my time by doing it at this stage of the process, but
probably.
I think it's important that
you've read the room.
There is an alternative way out of this.
You've read the room correctly, Your Honor.
Money damages are all the plaintiff can ask for. Nobody can restore. We say this when people lose loved ones or that they have
nothing makes
some
it
meaningful
right.
part of their body or mind that's been lost in a litigation. We can't restore that. We award money damages. And so ultimately that's what the imperfect litigation system will have. And we can do by Zoom, folks, if it's just as easy. My order was to have everybody here so that you all get a chance to meet.
Well, that's why there's all 7 lawyers in person.
Understanding that this is a civil matter, and I want you to be, at least to some extent, trying to be civil about how to resolve your issues. I would have liked to have seen, for instance, this motion that was brought about in open court should have really been discussed ahead of time so you have a better position on it, but I don't want to waste your time.
It hasn't been filed yet, though.
Next hearing by Zoom? You want to do it in person? You tell me. Plaintiff?
We're agnostic, Your Honor. I'll do whatever.
We're agnostic? Is that what you said?
Yeah, as it relates to that. We'll come in person or we'll do it by
He's agnostic as to Zoom.
Your Honor, we prefer to be in person.
Okay.
How many days out you want to go? 60 days? 90 days?
Yeah, probably 60 days.
60 days?
60 days, really?
November 21st, Friday in the end of November.
Anytime there is a civil case, look, civil cases are not about making a point. They're about trying to seek the truth, right? And that's what Karen's going to do with this civil case. We're going to try to get the truth out there. Like I said, the days of her being on the defensive, those days are over. So you said everything that you heard in there was basically parroted. Every single word that you heard in there was basically parroted right from Michael Morrissey, right from the prosecutions. They lifted it right off the prosecution's closing argument. And maybe somebody should check the tapes. Because last time I checked, those arguments were put forward in front of a jury, and the jury spoke very, very loudly. Not guilty, and not just not guilty when the jurors were asked, innocent. Those claims are false, and they were proven false, and they will be proven false again. But in terms of what you just asked, should this case be resolved, we're always open to resolution. We'll see. We'll see. It depends on how reasonable the other side is.
At the end of the civil hearing, it actually moved along pretty quickly, and the court advised the parties at the very end of the hearing, look, civil litigation is not criminal litigation. The standard is different. Nothing will bring someone back. Civil court cannot appropriately undo the harm that is done. The best civil court can do is apportion some amount of liability and some amount of money to the person who's liable for doing the thing. And the court strongly urged the parties to have that conversation with their lawyers. Look, talk about the fact that this won't even go to trial till 2027, possibly 2028. Especially if Karen Reed's attorneys bring in 10 additional parties. There are already 8 parties in the civil litigation. Karen Reed's attorneys are talking about bringing in 10 additional parties to this litigation. If that happens, then we have a whole lot more depositions, discovery, and the rest of it. So it's going to take time. Civil litigation is arduous and expensive. And if the goal of this civil litigation is answers, then it is going to be extensive, expensive, and long. We are not going to have swift resolution of this case. And the court did indicate that he wanted all the attorneys in person to have a conversation about this case, which is why Karen Reed had 7 attorneys appearing in court. The court did say at the very end that he wanted all the attorneys in person, offered to have this case on Zoom at the next hearing, and then it was determined that the next hearing will be in person in November 21st, 2025. So this case is going to take some time. We will cover the goings on in filings in between if we are not covering other trials. So we will tune back in. I don't anticipate that I will cover everything the second that they drop, because it's going to be a years-long process. So as things come out, we will cover them. But The bars that are being sued can settle separately from Karen Reed. So if the Waterfall and CF McCarthy's insurance are like, y'all, everyone at trial said that she wasn't intoxicated. How are you going to prove that we overserved her? Can we just settle it out and we'll turn over our discovery to you? So here's the discovery. We'll cooperate with you. We're not paying you anything. Just remove us from this litigation. Sure, they can absolutely do that. Different plaintiff parties can settle out. Will they? We don't know. Is it likely? Not at this point. Much will happen. The thing I'm most interested to see is Karen Reed sues everybody. That's what I want to see next. How is that going to go? Is Karen Reed suing Canton, Massachusetts state troopers, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, Brian Higgins, Tully, Bukhenik, and Proctor? Is that going to be part of this trial? Is that going to be a separate but related case? And I imagine that if those parties are added in, and the defense here, Karen Reed's defense, has made an argument, look, based on the arguments being made by the plaintiffs here, we have to have these parties to have the entirety of the facts attributable and presented in one case. And we can only do that with all these parties. So like Karen Reed sues everybody means that the fight over discovery is going to be extensive, because then you get to depose Tully, Bukhenik, whoever's designated from Canton, whoever's designated from state troopers, Proctor. Do you think Proctor's going to fight that discovery? Fuck yeah, Proctor's going to fight that discovery. So's everybody else. Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, all of them are going to fight discovery. It's going to be so much work, but it'll be really interesting to see how the court arranges those lawsuits, if they will all ultimately be heard by one jury or not. But if 10 additional parties are added with all the litigation fights over discovery that I would anticipate, it will push this case back much further. So I can understand where John O'Keefe's parents do not want their case almost overtaken by Karen Reed sues the world. But I can also understand where Karen Reed is coming from, saying, they're saying I did all this, and the only way I can show you that I didn't do all this is to also show you the rest of this. So you would end up with the O'Keefe parties versus Karen Reed and the bars, and then Karen Reed versus everyone else I just named. It will be extensive. Very curious to see what the court does. The court has pledged his words. The court said pledged to get his ruling out in short order. So does that mean within the next 60 days? Yeah, that's what the court means. Within the next 60 days. This is going to be a very long road. For all of you that started following the Tom Girardi case, when I started following that, we started talking about Tom Girardi in this case in 2020. And we covered the Girardi case until 2025, and we're still not all the way done yet. This is going to be a case like that, where we are going to be covering this for years to come. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerdapp.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.